In the summer of 1981, Clash of the Titans hit the silver screen, released on the 12th of June in the United States and later released in July in the UK. It grossed $6.5 million on its opening weekend, taking second place behind Steven Spielberg's Raiders of the Lost Ark at the US box office, which was also released on the same day. By the time it had finished its theatrical run, it had grossed $41 million in North America, which made it the 11th highest grossing film of the year, bringing in a total box office of $70 million worldwide.
The myth, the magic, the mystery, the majesty.
Destroy Argos!
Let loose the last of the Titans.
Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer presents Clash of the Titans. The good, the evil, the danger, the daring.
How may a mortal man face and defeat the Kraken?
Clash of the Titans. The combat, the courage, the splendor, the spectacle. Clash of the Titans.
It's a saga of Greek myths and legends and fearsome creatures and visual effects that were brought to the big screen by the great animator Ray Harryhausen. This movie marked Harryhausen's final feature film as producer and special effects creator. Harryhausen's longtime producing partner Charles H. Schneer had secured a financing deal with the British National Film Development Fund, which agreed to support 2 to 3 years of pre-production on the originally titled Perseus and the Gorgon's Head. Although this scheme was established 6 months earlier to promote British filmmaking in England, the American filmmaking team of Schneer and Harryhausen was not required to produce the picture in the UK. However, both men had been working in England since 1959. As of January 1977, Schneer and Harryhausen had a 35-year relationship with Columbia Pictures, which was set to release the upcoming Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger. And the studio were planning to back Perseus and the Gorgon's Head. Schneer, however, took it to Orion Pictures, who insisted Arnold Schwarzenegger play the lead. Schwarzenegger was fairly unknown at the time. Of course, he would find great success later with Conan the Barbarian, but at the time Schneer felt that with the exception of Hercules, Greek heroes were athletic, not overly muscular. He also felt that casting a very muscular actor was a cliché, harkening back to the cheesy Italian sword and sandal movies made in the 50s and 60s. He then approached MGM, who agreed to finance it. The picture was greenlit and renamed Clash of the Titans. MGM agreed to triple Columbia's original budget to $10 million. The picture was set to be the first British National funded feature to go into production. However, the budget then increased to $15 million. A high cost was attributed to the recent casting of celebrity actors, the extensive location shooting, and the use of Harryhausen's diorama special effects, which required at least 1 year of post-production. The movie was directed by Brit Desmond Davis, who unfortunately passed away recently. Davis was chosen to direct by Schneer, who was impressed with his intelligent visual inventiveness of the 1979 BBC production of Shakespeare's Measure for Measure, showing his ability to work with Shakespearean actors. Davis mainly worked in television, directing episodes of The New Avengers. He later directed the 1985 film adaptation of Agatha Christie's Ordeal by Innocence, starring Donald Sutherland. The movie was the idea of a screenwriter Beverly Cross. Cross was a student of mythology. He developed a storyline centering on Perseus and Andromeda, which links several myths. He took the idea to producers Schneer and Harryhausen, as he'd previously written the scripts for Jason and the Argonauts in 1963, and later the script for Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger in 1977. Harryhausen, however, requested he modify the story to add more creatures. The pair of producers then sent a copy of the script to the British Board of Film Classification, seeking advice on how to secure a U or A certificate. The draft originally included scenes which the BBFC considered would not be acceptable under those certificates, including the Kraken tearing Pegasus to pieces and Andromeda appearing naked during the climax of the film. Changes to the script were made on submission. Some cuts to the Perseus' final battle with Calibos were made, and the film secured the A certificate at the time. The plot sees Acrisius of Argos imprisons his daughter Diane, jealous of her beauty. When the god Zeus impregnates her, Acrisius banishes his daughter and his newborn grandson Perseus to a wooden chest in the sea, In retribution, Zeus kills Acrisius and orders Poseidon to release the last of the Titans, a gigantic sea monster called the Kraken, to destroy Argos. Dione and Perseus safely float to the islands of Seriphos, where Perseus grows to adulthood. Calibos, the spoilt and rebellious son of the sea goddess Theseus, is betrothed to the princess Andromeda, daughter of the queen Cassiopeia of Joppa, but for committing several atrocities against Zeus, including destroying all but one of Zeus's sacred flying horses, Zeus transforms Calibos into a deformed monstrous creature. In revenge, Theseus transports an adult Perseus from Seriphos to an abandoned amphitheatre in Joppa, where he befriends a soldier, Tallo, and an elderly poet named Aemon, and learns that Andromeda is under a curse and cannot marry unless her suitor, upon the threat of execution if he fails, successfully answers a riddle concocted by Calibos. Zeus sends Perseus a god-crafted helmet from Athena, which makes its wearer invisible, a magical sword from Aphrodite, and a shield from Hera. Perseus, wearing the helmet, captures Pegasus and follows Calibos' giant vulture, carrying Andromeda's spirit during her sleep to learn the next riddle. Perseus is discovered and nearly killed by Calibos, but manages to sever one of Calibos' hands, losing his helmet in the process. The next morning, Perseus presents himself as the next husband-to-be and correctly answers the riddle, winning Andromeda's hand in marriage. Finding that Thetis cannot act against Perseus, Calibos instead demands that she takes vengeance on Joppa. At the wedding in Thetis' temple, Queen Cassiopeia declares Andromeda's beauty greater than that of Thetis herself, whereupon an earthquake shakes the temple, causing the head of the statue of Thetis to break off and crash to the floor. Thetis, using the statue's head to speak through, demands Andromeda be sacrificed to the Kraken. On pain of Joppa's destruction, Perseus seeks a way to defeat the Kraken, but Perseus is captured by Calibos and his men. Zeus commands Athena to give Perseus her owl, Bubo, but instead she orders Hephaestus to build a golden replica of Bobo, who leads Perseus, Andromeda, Aemon, Tallo and some soldiers to the Stygian witches. By taking the magic eye, Perseus forces them to reveal that the only way to defeat the Kraken is by using the head of the Gorgon, Medusa, whose gaze can turn any living thing into stone, who lives on an island in the river Styx at the edge of the underworld. The next day the group continue on their journey without Andromeda and Aemon, who return to Joppa. On the Gorgon's island, most of Perseus' men are killed. Perseus fights and kills Medusa's guardian, a two-headed dog. Perseus then enters the Gorgon's lair. Harry Hamlin plays the hero Perseus. Before Hamlin was considered for the role, other runners-up for the role were Malcolm McDowell, Michael York and Richard Chamberlain. Hamlin wanted to appear in Love Spell so he could star alongside Richard Burton, but ultimately chose Clash of the Titans to appear opposite Sir Laurence Olivier. This was Hamlin's first major role, and he later appeared in the 80s TV series LA Law. Judy Boker stars as Andromeda, best known for her role in the 70s TV series The Adventures of Black Beauty. She starred later in the British film The Shooting Party in 1985. The late Burgess Meredith stars as Aemon. Burgess is best known for his iconic role as Mickey in Rocky. MGM's executives overruled Schneer's original choice of John Gielgud to portray the playwright Aemon, and asked for Burgess to be cast instead. The studio preferred an American actor. They didn't want the public to think it was totally an English picture. Dame Maggie Smith stars as Thetis. Smith was married to screenwriter Beverly Cross. It was due to her friendship with Laurence Olivier that she was able to persuade him to join the cast as well. Sian Phillips plays Cassiopeia. She appeared in a host of movies in the 80s, such as June in 1984. British actor Claire Bloom has a small role as the god Hera. Schneer deliberately sought better-known actors to play the gods in order to improve the film's chances at the box office. The scene involving the gods only took 8 days to film. Bloom only agreed to make it because she was told Laurence Olivier was in it, and filming would only last a week. Ursula Anders stars as Aphrodite. In many of the original posters for the film, Anders took top billing as she was a name that could draw a crowd, after her iconic performance in Dr. No. Actually, in the final film, she actually only has one line.
But Zeus transformed himself into a glittering shower of gold and visited her and loved her.
Harry Hamlin and Ursula Anders were romantically involved at the time of production. Their son Dmitri was born in 1980. After filming was completed, the late Sir Laurence Olivier plays the mighty Zeus, a veteran star of stage and screen. During the filming, Olivier was very unwell and struggled throughout. He used to physically lean on co-star Pat Roach, who stars as Hephaestus, and say, "Let me draw on some of your strength, dear boy." Pat is best known as a regular in the Indiana Jones movies. Other cast members are Susan Fleetwood as Athena, and British actor the late Tim Pickett-Smith stars as Thallo. Jack Willem, who stars as Poseidon, had already played a role in Jason and the Argonauts. Neil McCarthy stars as Calibos. Initially, Calibos had no dialogue and was purely a stop-motion character. After a rewrite of the script, dialogue was added, so the role was given to McCarthy. Calibos, Lord of the Marsh and son of Thetis, does not appear in Greek mythology, and is based on Caliban, an antagonist created by William Shakespeare for his play The Tempest. In Greek mythology, the son of Thetis was Achilles, Greek's best warrior in the fight against Troy. This is not the only change regarding Greek mythology. The main titan in the film is the Kraken. The Kraken is actually from Norwegian mythology and was not actually a titan in Greek mythology at all. Whilst Medusa does indeed appear in Greek mythology, she was never considered an actual titan by the Greeks. In the initial script, Medusa was beheaded graphically when Perseus threw his shield at her. Hamlin refused to film this and even threatened to fly home if it wasn't changed, so that the film would get a wider release and was more in keeping with Greek mythology. When the day came to film the scene and it still hadn't been changed, he threatened to quit the movie. He remained in his trailer, much to Schneer, Davis and Harryhausen's annoyance. In the process of trying to coax him out, he was gradually able to get some of the other crew members on his side, which resulted in the scene being rewritten accordingly. The movie's stunning score is by Laurence Rosenthal. The musical director at MGM was familiar with Rosenthal's canon and arranged for him to have an interview with Schneer. Rosenthal confided that the project took him by surprise, considering he had never seen a Ray Harryhausen film nor written for this genre, providing his talents to scores such as the 70s disaster movie Meteor and the original Island of Dr. Moreau, starring Michael York. John Barry was originally hired to score this movie and recorded 15 minutes of demos, which Harryhausen did not like. The demo tape was recently found in the Ray Harryhausen archives. This is a truly fantastic classic score, full of bombastic and orchestral cues. For me, Rosenthal's score has elements of John Williams' score for Star Wars, of having the same effect of bringing on such childhood nostalgia. Principal photography began in May 1979 at Pinewood Studios in England. Other locations included Spain, that appears in The Visit to the Stygian Witches. The Azure Window in Gozo, Malta, appears in the final sequence with the battle against the Kraken. The scene where Diane and Perseus are cast adrift was filmed on the Lizard Coast in Cornwall, the seaside town of Palermo in Italy, as well as the amphitheatre in Oscar Antigua, and the Pestum, which was also a location used in Jason and the Argonauts. I first watched Clash of the Titans upon its release here in the UK, watching it a couple of times in the cinema. Being a part of my childhood, I have a huge affection for it. It was almost as important as Star Wars for me when I was a kid. I've seen this movie countless times on home video, and it is a film I have seen during my childhood, at home every Christmas or at the Easter holidays, but recently I haven't watched it for some years. Watch it in preparation for this review. It certainly has a quality combination of camp and nostalgia. Like many films from the era, the inspiration to repeat the huge success of Star Wars in 1977, with many studios jumping on the bandwagon, trying to match its success. The producers Harryhausen and Schneer's last production, Sinbad and the Eye of the Tiger, also released in 1977, while not a box office bomb, didn't perform as well as 1973's The Golden Voyage of Sinbad, due in part to the impact of Star Wars. The pair of producers were obviously inspired by its success. It's a classic story of a hero's journey, who's bestowed gifts from his all-powerful father. It's an old tale, as old as Greek legend you may say. The producers also decided to introduce Bobo, the mechanical owl, after the popularity of R2-D2. Harryhausen has of course denied this and stated Bobo was designed before Star Wars release, but obviously there are influences here.
He told me.
Told you? Oh.
The movie's poster was designed by Greg and Tim Hildebrand, also known as the Hildebrand brothers. They worked collaboratively as fantasy and science fiction artists for many years. They just happened to be responsible for the British version of the original Star Wars quad poster. I love discovering the alternative overseas posters too. They are always kind of a crazy variation on the theme. Clash of the Titans was heavily promoted here in the UK during the film's theatrical release. The Kids Weekly, Lookin', released a special tie-in of the film, which was something quite unique. I particularly remember a marketing campaign that was made for Monster Munch. Kids could send off for a poster magazine if they sent in empty packets as proof of purchase. Also on the back of the packet featured fun facts on one of the monsters in the film. In an attempt to cash in on the success of Kenner's Star Wars toy range, Mattel produced a range of Clash of the Titan toys in 1981. The toys released were Perseus, Tallow, Calabos, Charon, Pegasus and the Kraken, but oddly no Medusa figures were produced. Personally, I have no memories of these toys being released in the UK, however I'm sure I would have collected them if I'd known about them. Unfortunately this range wasn't successful, so I've become a rare find in the toy collecting world. Ray Harryhausen's visual effects were and still are a high point. The old-fashioned stop-motion animation reached new complexity here. The Medusa sequence especially is a delightful high point. It's certainly Harryhausen's swan song. Dare I say it out-trumps the Kraken sequence at the end of the movie. It was the last hurrah for old-school filmmaking, and while some of the plot of Clash of the Titans is purely a vehicle for Harryhausen's wonderful stop-motion creations, Bobo, Calabos, the Vulture and Pegasus are beautifully realised, and every one has a unique personality. While the scorpions and the two-headed dog, which should have been three but were given two heads to make it easier to animate, are typical sword fodder for the good guys to easily dispense with, a sequence that seems to appear in all of his movies. It was also the only one he required assistance from animator Stephen Archer. Stephen would go on to work on the stop motion in another 80s cult classic, Krull in 1983, working on the spider in the Widow of the Web sequence. The BBFC, reviewing the film for certification in 1981, said that Harryhausen's effects were well done and would give entertainment to audiences of all ages, but might appear a little old hat to those familiar with Star Wars and Superman. By today's standards, some of the effects are showing their age, in particular the opening credits. Seagull animation is particularly poor, and there's some badly composited blue screen shots, but there are some great miniatures. Despite this style of movie becoming out of fashion, the stop-motion method continued to be used throughout movies for some time, with animators such as Phil Tippett continuing the craft. I guess the style of film has been a staple since the late 50s and 60s, and it looked a little dated by 1981. Desmond Davis' direction is sometimes a little wooden, the young cast look attractive but slightly vacant, and the veteran actors look bewildered and bored, and the movie goes on too long, but the underlying themes and the original stories are intact. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film holds an approval rating of 67%, based on 45 reviews, and an average rating of 6 out of 10. The critical consensus is a goofy old-school sword and sandal epic. Clash of the Titans mines Greek mythology through its story and fleshes it out with Ray Harryhausen's charmingly archaic stop-motion animation techniques. Because of the film's success, a sequel titled Force of the Trojans was pitched to MGM in 1984, but further developments of the movie were never eventuated, possibly due to the high cost of production of the original. However, a 4-issue comic book miniseries, Wrath of the Titans, was produced in 2007, released by Tidal Wave Productions as part of their Ray Harryhausen signature series, picking up the story 5 years after the original film. Warner Brothers had acquired rights to Clash of the Titans in 2007, and Lawrence Kasdan had been hired to write a remake, but Kasdan did not remain on the project. The remake was released on the 2nd of April 2010, starring Sam Worthington as Perseus, Liam Neeson as Zeus, and Ralph Fiennes as Hades. This much maligned remake shows the unfortunate lack of heart that a lot of big summer blockbusters have today, and it gets thumbs down purely for showing little respect to Bobo. Personally, I adored this character as a kid. Clash of the Titans is and always will be a thoroughly entertaining film. It's a time capsule for a generation of actors such as Laurence Olivier, Burgess Meredith, Pat Roach and Maggie Smith, and illustrates a pivotal time in filmmaking. It's available to purchase on HMV's Premium Collection on Blu-ray in the UK, which has a fantastic transfer, You can also rent it on various streaming platforms such as Amazon Prime. Clash of the Titans celebrated its 40th anniversary this year. 1981 was an exciting period when films such as Star Wars, Tron and Alien were being produced and pushed the boundaries of filmmaking. It's not so much Harryhausen's effects here that are outdated, but this style of film. Harryhausen's effects were the template for so many future filmmakers. Clash of the Titans is one of the most celebrated fantasy films of all time, and of course, like all classic films, it deserves to be viewed by future generations.
I think adults like fantasy as well as children. Most people feel it's rather childish to have an imagination. I don't agree with that. I think you should go through life and imagine the very best.
If you enjoyed my content, then please consider subscribing to my channel. Leave a comment about your thoughts on Clash of the Titans, and if you enjoyed the video, please share and like. You can also follow my channel on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on my next review. Until then, take care and I'll speak to you soon.